Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I really do appreciate it. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Shout out to the 19 folks. Man, so many things that I still have to get to, trying to cover some other stuff besides the WNBA, but the WNBA is just this past week since the Fever loss has been an absolute epic meltdown by the WNBA. It is fascinating, it's disturbing, it's frustrating. Yeah, it has just been absolutely out of control. The entire league is having a complete meltdown. I mean, you saw in a previous video the statement that looked like it was written by maybe a middle schooler at most, completely unprofessional. Just the basics from AI like ChatGPT or something would have done a much better job than the gibberish that was put out by the Players Association. But of course, they put out their complete ridiculous nonsensical statement just because a journalist asked a legitimate question they didn't like, and the whole league had a meltdown about it, trying to get a man. I'll just leave it at Christine Brennan has had an incredible journalistic career and has done a lot of things for women in journalism and in sport. But that's neither here nor there to the WNBA, because you have to agree with them on every single little thing or you are the enemy. But I've noticed this past week, one of the best ways I can think to describe it, and as parents, you might have had to deal with this on your own if you want, or just you may have seen this. Anybody may have seen this. You've got, mom and dad, or just mom or just dad, because it usually happens when there's one parent, because it's tougher, especially if there are multiple kids and you got young kids, and you've got that one kid who, they grab something off a shelf that they want and they've got to have it, and mom or dad says no, you got to put it back, and bam, screeching, screaming, tears, hitting mom or dad, throwing stuff, dropping to the floor in the middle of the grocery store, the department store, whatever it is, pounding their fists and pounding their feet on the ground and screaming their head off. And everyone in the store is looking. And you as the parent are just like, you want to die from sheer embarrassment. You want to just disappear. You want to melt into the floor. Apparently, the entire WNBA is that kid having the temper tantrum. That kid who does not have the emotional control or maturity to not have a complete and total meltdown when something occurs that they don't like. It is absolute insanity. And to that point, we're going to dig in. Oh, what we've got on the screen here, this is just one of those terrible, awful Fever fans that make people feel unsafe. Getting a pair of shoes from Aaliyah Boston. Shout out Aaliyah Boston. I mean, look at this, right? Like, are you kidding me? How fantastic is that? But and I just had that on there because I wanted to shout out Aaliyah Boston, because as I'm doing this stuff and we're talking about how awful everything about the WNBA is, I think when we can see stuff like that, it is important to shout out some of these players, to shout out how Erica Wheeler and Kelsey Mitchell handled themselves the other day and things like that, because unfortunately, that is very much the minority when it comes to the WNBA. For the most part, you get stuff like this, and we're going to listen to Brittney Griner. Oh, man. Who gets, first of all, the question is stupid. The question is very much a leading question. Do you appreciate the new fans? I've never, ever heard an athlete in a sport be asked that question before, especially a sport that's been losing millions of dollars a year for 3 decades and shouldn't even exist. But no athlete gets, but of course it was a setup, right? So we're going to listen to a little bit of what Britt Griner has to say about the new fans. You'll love this.
How do you feel about what has happened over the past year with the W since you first came in to where it is now? And obviously the game has grown and there's new fans, but how do you appreciate the new fans without all the noise that's coming?
I don't appreciate the new fans that sit there and yell racial slurs at myself, my teammates, and the people that I play against, because yeah, those might be opponents, but those are friends too.
Wow. So I really, really prepared myself for this because I didn't want to just go on this crazy rant because that is, I shouldn't say I didn't want to. I do want to, actually, but I didn't want to for the video because I don't know if it's that helpful. I think sometimes you just have to laugh. But if you listened to Brittney Griner, aka Pops, and don't come for me, that is straight out of Brittney Griner's mouth when asked by a reporter what your kid's going to call you, Brittney Griner, or I think Brittney Griner actually corrected what the reporter said and said Pops. Kid's going to call her Pops. So don't come for me. That was a Brittney Griner thing. So anyway, if you heard that beginning, if you really like paid attention to that, according to Brittney Griner, at games, it's a regular occurrence where fans, new fans, of course, it has to be new fans, are shouting racial slurs at not just Brittney Griner, but teammates and opponents as well. I feel comfortable in saying, and look, I will say right up front, if I'm proven wrong, I will say I was wrong and I will apologize. But I feel comfortable saying this is not true. What Brittney Griner is saying is not true. Brittney Griner knows it's not true. How do I feel comfortable saying that? Because in this day and age, at a professional sporting event, there is no way. Again, listen to the wording. Doesn't appreciate the fans that are yelling racial slurs at her teammates, and opponents. This is happening on a regular basis, according to Brittney Griner. But nowhere, ever, this season has anyone talked about this or produced evidence that it's happening. And we have all of the cameras and all of the mics from televising the games. We have almost maybe not the young kids that are with them, but I'm going to say thousands and thousands of people there with their own video cameras in the palm of their hand. And as you know from social media, people always have them out and are videoing things. And there's none of this. There is zero proof of what Britt is saying here. Zero proof of what Britt is saying here. Do you understand my point that I'm making? This is not true. They are in this ridiculous bubble. They have never had to deal with fans. They've never had to deal with criticism. Again, going back to what I said about Christine Brennan, they're incapable emotionally of being able to function as human beings and deal with someone who might have a different opinion than they do about something. These are not mentally healthy, stable human beings. And it's sad. I mean, at the end of the day, as enraging and frustrating as it can be, it's also sad. It really truly is, because what kind of life is that to lead? And man, the WNBA with the whole, oh, you got the Alyssa Thomas thing and Deshaun Carrington, and then you had the Players Association with their ridiculousness. You have a league of players trying to get a well-decorated, long-time reporter supportive of women in journalism and sports. You're trying to get her fired for asking a legitimate question. Dijon the Mustard, Dejanay Carrington, purposely jabbed her fingers into Caitlin Clark's face. And so a reporter asked her a question about it. And yes, it's purposeful. It's on film. I broke it down. No doubt about it. She did it on purpose. Your hand does not move that way otherwise. And a reporter asks about it. I promise you, every time something like that happens in the NBA or the NFL, you get asked about it. If a pitcher hits a batter with a pitch when the batter before them had hit a home run, or that batter had earlier in the game hit a home run, they get asked a question about it, and no one bats an eye. Only in the WNBA is there a complete and total meltdown and a movement to get a reporter fired for a legitimate question of an athlete about something that happened in the game. I mean, these people are absolute bonkers. And by the way, and I don't think I even have it up anymore, but let me see if I can grab it real quick. So we have, just to give you an idea and what I mean about cameras and so forth, the wonderful Dawn Staley. If you all remember a few years ago, there was the BYU Duke volleyball game where the Duke player lied. And yes, I say lied because, again, there was an investigation and there's no proof. And I'll tell you why it was a lie. Lied about a BYU fan repeatedly calling her a certain word every time she served. Now, if you've ever been to, well, any sporting event, but if you've been to a volleyball match, it is actually impossible for a fan to yell something at the server that no one else hears. And yet, that is supposedly what happened. There was an investigation. You had like over 50 interviews, all the fans around this fan who supposedly said this, not on video or audio anywhere. None of the other players ever heard it. It didn't happen. And yet, Dawn Staley, a South Carolina basketball coach, canceled games the next 2 seasons against BYU because she wanted to virtue signal. That's all it was about. Dawn Staley is a grifter. Okay, that is what Dawn Staley is. She never wastes an opportunity to get her name out there in front of nonsense like this. And that is why this is just another example of why I say what Brittney Griner is saying just simply isn't true. And it's sad and it's disturbing that people think like this and they think it's okay to spread this kind of hate and division. It's not okay. Just like it would not be okay if it were true. If there were fans actually doing that, those fans should be kicked out and not allowed back in. So I want to make that very clear. This is not, oh, it'd be okay if it's happening. No. It would not be okay if it's happening. And it's also not okay to lie and say it's happening when it's not. It doesn't help anyone at all. No matter what, and sadly what it gets into with a lot of this is political stuff. And I don't care who you are, left or right. None of this helps anybody. And to that point, by the way, and it's been shown over and over again, especially when Caitlin Clark liked the Taylor Swift post, they'll say it's not true. They'll continue to say it's not true and to try and pigeonhole Caitlin Clark's fans into a very specific tiny box because then it seems like it's okay to attack them. But Caitlin Clark fans are not in that box, which is a point I've made from day one. They are all across the political spectrum. They are all across the racial spectrum, whatever. They're as different and varied as any other group or any other group should be, okay? They don't all agree on everything other than they love watching Caitlin Clark play basketball. So please, let's stop this nonsense, please. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there because there's other stuff I got to cover in other videos. I don't want to make every video like a 40-minute diatribe. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Oh, the one last thing I will add, because I say this always, unfortunately, and we can offer solutions to a lot of this stuff, but unfortunately, I don't think any of it ever truly changes until the NBA says you can't have our money to cover your losses anymore. That's the only way that you force change on the WNBA. And that's why they feel comfortable having these meltdowns that they've been having and saying they don't want new fans, because they know that they could play in front of empty arenas and no TV deal, and they would still continue to exist as a league because the NBA will cover their losses. Until that's not a possibility and they have to actually make money or fold, then you may see change happening. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. We are, I think we're actually under 150 away from 10,000, which is insane. It's kind of slowed down as the WNBA season is closing, but I think we can get there because there's a lot of other sports stuff to cover. And I will talk to you later.